IWC GST line of watches has been long forgotten. However, in my opinion, they have to be one of the coolest lines of watches that IWC has ever made, and that's including the Ingenieur. These are integrated bracelet watches, so they're essentially a sports watch. However, they have some really great gems in the lineup. Number one, today we're going to be looking at my long-standing Grail watch. It is the IWC GST in titanium. It's a perpetual calendar chronograph with a moon phase that is absolutely gorgeous, and it also gets a digital display for the year. However, that's not the only gem in that GST lineup. And by the way, the GST lineup was only made for a few years in the early 2000s. They made a Rattrapant, and of course that was designed by Richard Habring, the movement in that watch. There was also an alarm watch. The alarm watch used a Memovox alarm. There was actually a JLC movement that was in those watches, and those are actually very affordable. If you're actually looking for something that can go in water and you also want an alarm function, that is a great watch, and there aren't many examples out there. They all get about 120 meters of water resistance. Unless you're getting a dive watch, those get even more. Some really great watches from this line. However, today we're going to be looking at my favorite. It is the Perpetual calendar in titanium. Let's flip the camera and take a look at my latest purchase, and we'll talk about a couple of issues that I faced with this purchase. However, hopefully everything ends up okay. We'll talk about that in the video. So let's flip the camera and take a look at an IWC GST Perpetual calendar chronograph. So here it is. This is the now retired IWC GST. It's actually been retired for quite some time now. This is the Perpetual calendar chronograph with a moon phase, and that moon phase is beautiful. I'll show you that in just a few seconds. This is in titanium. It gets 120 meters of water resistance, so this is a sports Perpetual calendar chronograph. You could actually go swimming with this. It's pretty cool. Now, you might know that I already own an IWC Perpetual calendar. It's actually an Ingenieur with a digital display and flyback chronograph. So I love what IWC do with their Perpetual calendars. They're actually kind of affordable and very complicated when you look at other brands. If you want something with a chronograph and a Perpetual calendar, they are very, very expensive. I'm going to talk about price, where I bought this, and what to avoid when buying these watches. I'm also going to talk about a major flaw on this watch that I didn't notice when I purchased it, and I'll get to that in just a second. So as I mentioned, this is in titanium. The bracelet's in titanium. It has a really great integrated bracelet look, and it is an integrated bracelet watch. Everything is bead blasted. At this time, this was in 2006, but I believe these came out originally in 2004. They didn't make them many years. I think they only made them for about 4 or 5 years. This was heavily influenced by IWC's relationship with Porsche design. You could see that in the dial and in the case, the bracelet, everything here is media blasted. That is very typical of Porsche design. It's also in titanium. Again, very typical of Porsche design. The dial is a matte black, and it's sort of monotone. So you have white and black. However, there is yellow accents, and it goes beautifully with that titanium case. Everything here just looks sleek. Even though it's a big, bold watch, it does wear really nice and light on the wrist because of the titanium. It's a 43 millimeter watch. It's on the thicker side, but it does wear really nicely, especially considering it's an integrated bracelet watch. Now, you do get a chronograph on here, and you do have a Perpetual calendar, and you also have a beautiful moon phase. That moon phase at the 12 o'clock position, the moon is in solid 18 karat yellow gold. I believe it's 18 karat yellow gold. And then you have an aventurine disc for the night sky. It is beautiful. And there are layers to this dial as well. You have a minute track on the outside of the dial. Then there is an hour track. Then there's a step down. That's the Perpetual calendar level. And then there's sort of another step down to that moon phase. So lots of layers to the dial as well. Really visually very, very distinctive, Very easy to read as well. You have a screwed-in crown, screwed-in case back, and like I mentioned, 120 meters of water resistance, which is excellent. I'm going to do quick measurements, and then I'm going to talk about basically what I paid for this, what happened during the purchase that kind of made this somewhat of a bad purchase, but we'll get back to that in just a second. So, like I said, this is around a 43 millimeter watch, so 42.7 at the bezel, but that's what it wears like. Thickness here is on the thicker side, so this is powered by a Valjoux 7750 with a Kurt Klaus module on top, so 16 millimeters thick. Everything considered, how complicated this watch is, and that Kurt Klaus perpetual calendar moon phase on top, that is really not that bad at 16 millimeters, and it doesn't wear that thick, and I'll show you that on my wrist in just a second. The lug to lug is a little bit weird on here, so if you measure it at the actual lugs, you're getting around 48 millimeters, 48 and a half. If you measure it at the bracelet, it's around 54.8. So I would suggest this watch for a larger wrist, but that is because it is a larger watch. It does wear larger. My other IWC Ingenieur Perpetual Calendar actually wears way larger than this watch, so this is actually a pleasure to wear compared to that watch. 7.1 millimeters on the crown, and you do have the IWC fish on here. So this is technically a neo vintage watch. You actually do have a press buckle on here, and that's because this is an older watch. This is in titanium as well. It is on the older side from 2006. Back then, this was kind of common, but you know, obviously now that would not be as acceptable. You do have IWC on the buckle right here, very nicely signed. Everything here is really nice. There's not a lot of scratches, and if you're familiar with the era, this bracelet is amazing. Each one of these is essentially a link that can be removed. There's a little system. It comes with two pushers, and they look like this. They're basically brass pushers. You push in a button on the back of the link, and I'll take a picture of it so you can see. And then with the other pusher, they give you two of those. You just push out these pins. They're really not pins. They're solid bars. Better than a screwed link. Really easy to change links on here. I'm not sure IWC still do this with their bracelets. I really wish they did. I'll take pictures so you can see what I'm talking about. It's phenomenal. And that is to the lugs. So every single one of these links that can be done with, and then you could even do it at the lugs. There are straps that they make for this watch, a Velcro strap, which I plan on getting. I think it looks really good on a Velcro strap. Now, I did buy this on eBay, so I was going to mention some pitfalls in purchasing these watches. eBay is filled with landmines when you're going to purchase something like a perpetual calendar. So really, if you buy it from someone who is selling it that actually doesn't know what they're selling, you might have an issue. Now, I did get this for a very good price. I got this for under $6,000, which, all things considered, how complicated this watch is, that is really not a bad price. However, there is one major flaw with this watch, and luckily I can actually get this fixed and not have to actually pay any money to get it fixed. Usually a full service on a watch like this would cost around $1,600. I actually looked that up on IWC's website. Another really good thing about IWC's website and IWC in general, they have all their past watches on their website, so if you're interested in any of that information, it's all on their website. And also, if you have a watch of theirs, if you actually enter in the number of the watch or the make and model, they'll tell you exactly what a full service will cost. So I'm going to go through some of the functionality here. You have a chronograph. The chronograph is running, obviously, the center seconds right there is the chronograph seconds that are running. Then you have seconds right there. You also have two other counters for the chronograph. You have minutes and hours at 12 o'clock and at 6 o'clock. If you look at the yellow hands, those hands are the hands for the perpetual calendar. You have the day, the date, and then the month. Here's the problem with this watch. Right now it's saying it's the 13th and Thursday of September. I have this set for the future. So if anybody knows about this module, if you set something for the future, you cannot go back in time. So if you actually went a month ahead in time, you cannot actually go back a month ahead in time. So you would have to let the watch sit for 1 month and then pick it up, or you could send it back to the manufacturer for them to reset the actual Perpetual chronograph. So you do have to be careful with these. If you're winding the watch, definitely be very careful. You don't want to advance very far. So I have advanced this for a specific reason. The 13th, Thursday, that is out of sync. The 13th is actually a Wednesday. It's not a Thursday. So that is the problem with this watch. And after I purchased it, I received it, I set the date, and I immediately noticed that today was not the day that the date indicated. So that was the problem, and I realized that the calendar was out of sync. So luckily, I do have a friend at IWC, and I hit him up, and essentially he just said to me, all you need to do is bring it to a watchmaker and have him move the hand back one day, and it'll be in sync, and it should work perfectly fine. You don't need to do a full service. And I have to say, the watch is in amazing condition. Otherwise, there are no scratches on this watch. For a titanium watch from 2006, that is really odd. It's actually very, very, very clean. And I'm actually very excited about that. However, I did buy this, and I'm actually going to name the seller that I bought this from because they do have a website. They have a brick and mortar store. I bought it from a brand called Rebag, and they were selling this on eBay. And I contacted them so many times to find out if this was an issue with the watch. And what I ended up having to do was go back to the original auction. I looked at the photos that they had of this watch on the auction, and I noticed when I looked up the date that they actually had it set to in the photos that it was ahead one day for the day. So that meant it was out of sync prior to me getting it, and I was actually pretty mad about that. I reached out to them. I did not get a response. I reached out to them again. I did not get a response. I reached out to them again, and I did not get a response. And then finally, when they did respond to me, they gave me a canned response. I then responded to them. I got another canned response, and they actually never made sense. So I decided to call them up. When I called them up, I got another canned response. They basically told me on the phone that I was SOL and that if I wanted to return it, eBay would have to approve the return, and more than likely they would not approve the return because it went through the authentication process at eBay and they check it for functionality. Now, I was always under the impression they don't check it for functionality. However, that's what they were telling me. I did reach out to eBay, and after a few hours, actually it might have been about 24 hours, they came back and accepted the return. So now I was about to return this watch when I did reach out to a friend, and he said to me, listen, don't return the watch. You got it for a great price. He actually works at IWC, and he said, just keep the watch, move that hand back, and you'll be perfectly fine. So that's what I'm going to do. I don't need a full service. All I need to do is have that hand move back, and I have a friend who could do it for me, which is great. Anyway, I'm going to throw this on my wrist. And again, I just want to say that was Rebag on eBay. So definitely, if you're going to ever buy anything from them, think twice. It was a very bad experience. I'm glad the watch is in really good condition, but I was very, very unhappy with their customer service, or basically lack of customer service. They still have not really come back to me at all or spoken to me like a human being. But today on my wrist, I have on my most recent purchase. Actually, I purchased this before I actually received this IWC. This is the Blancpain Swatch collaboration. This is the Atlantic version in blue. I have this on an aftermarket strap. It's actually a helm strap with, if you guys are familiar with the brand Helm, it fits it perfectly. So that's why I put it on here. It's a gray strap, and I think it looks way better on a more, I don't want to say less loud, but it is a much less loud strap. It's just a little bit more plain. It's a bright blue watch on a gray strap. I think this would actually look better on a black strap, and I just don't have one right now. There it is on my 7.5 inch wrist. It's a 43 millimeter watch, just under 43 millimeters, but I think it wears really nice. It's very light, very comfortable, very good looking, especially the bracelet. I think this would look great on a strap, but the bracelet is killer on this watch. It is gorgeous. I really love the dial. I love everything about this watch. I've always been a fan, and that's why it was basically a Grail watch of mine for a very long time, and I am very proud to own it. Well, there you go. The Lume is almost 20 years old. but it's not terrible. For some reason, they didn't loom the second hand, but they did loom the Perpetual calendar hands, even though you can't see what they actually read in the dark, which is kind of funny, I think. But all in all, I think this is a great watch. I think the loom is really not that bad. It's definitely legible. It doesn't last extremely long, but the fact that it has this much loom, it is a sports watch. I think it looks good, but you know, again, I wish there was a little bit of loom on that second hand. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of this watch? What do you think of my experience on eBay? I am sure there are plenty of people out there who have had problems with eBay, and I continue to have problems with eBay. I think the last 3 purchases that I have made, I've had some major issues with the purchase, which is, you know, kind of sucky. I like eBay. It's a great place to go, but almost every single purchase that I have there is something that is amiss with the auction that wasn't mentioned, or something is wrong. So it is also my fault. I keep on going back, so that is definitely my fault. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of this watch? And what do you think of that experience? Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It's super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.